How are the lads? Welcome back to a brand new video on the Magpie 24/7 YouTube channel. Yes, it has been a while. I am incredibly busy at school, but I've got a little holiday right here, right now, and I have done or I am planning to do, on the one side, a stay or go for this entire Newcastle United squad, which you are looking at right now. And in a couple of days, I will be dropping a new video in which we discuss every single transfer rumor that has been linked with Newcastle United. But without any further ado, let's get straight into this video. And straight into this video with a very, very big talking point to start us off with. It's our big man, Eddie Howe. Now, I'm gonna be very clear and upfront about this. I am still Eddie in. And you can call me a happy clapper all you want. You can say that I have zero ball knowledge. But hear me out. My reasons for wanting to keep Eddie Howe at the football club are threefold. First of all, I think a lot of clubs are going to be looking for a new manager over the summer. Think of the likes of Arne Slot, who's not sure of his job at Liverpool. Think of Carrick, who is on the shirt of continuing at Manchester United. Even Rossinier is under pressure at Chelsea. But even on the continent, I doubt Real Madrid won't be looking for a new coach. I think Inter could be looking for a new coach. I think a lot of European sides will be interested in bringing in a new top manager, which means you have a lot of competitions to go for the names you want to go for. If we don't want to get into a situation where we were last summer, in which we've been rejected 3 or 4 times before getting one of the names on our list, I think that would affect the morale around the squad really, really negatively. So that is first of all why I would keep him. Second of all, I think if we were to let go of Eddie Howe, I think he will only make a step up from Newcastle United. I think teams like Chelsea or Manchester United would be extremely interested in Eddie Howe's services, meaning it's the same with the player, right? If teams who have achieved more and are more competitive than you are interested in signing your player, it's most likely going to be a really, really good player. So develop more under, or have that player develop more, or in this case, have your players develop under this manager for a longer period of time. Third of all, I think Eddie Howe has shown throughout his career a willingness to adapt, to learn, to become a better manager, and I think we still have the wiggle room to allow him to learn on the job in Newcastle United and to become a better version of Eddie Howe. I think he has all the assets to become one of, if not the best English manager of all time, and I would absolutely love that to be at Newcastle United. So with all of those reasons having said, I'm just going to put Eddie Howe straight in the keep column. Now, our goalkeeper situation is a pretty strange one indeed too. First of all, we have two incredibly young goalkeepers. I'm just going to put both of them in the loan list because I think a lot of players should be going out on loan in this Newcastle United squad. Not necessarily aware of what the maximum amount of loanees is at this moment in time. But if you look at how many players Chelsea, for example, loan out, I think we shouldn't be worried. Then there are still five more keepers to get through. First of all, Aaron Ramsdale. I'm going to put him in contract exit because I don't necessarily foresee us paying the 20 million pounds it would take to make his move permanent. And it's not for a lack of effort when it comes to Aaron Ramsdale because he's now had two stints in the first 11. The first one really didn't end well, in my opinion, and I thought that's his Newcastle United career dead and buried. But Nick Pope, who we are going to talk about after Ramsdale, had a bit of a stinker around the turn of the year, so Ramsdale got his place back, and he hasn't looked back since. Let's be honest, he won the save of the month against Manchester United. I think he's been pretty good since then. But Newcastle United in 2026 have already conceded what, like 45 goals, which is genuinely insane. So maybe for that statistic alone, we can't justify spending 20 million on Aaron Ramsdale. So I would be letting go of him or not making his transfer a permanent one. Meaning, I'd keep Nick Pope around in the squad. Now, a lot of people will have him in sell, and I completely understand why, but I think you have to be careful when rejigging an entire goalkeeping department. I think this squad is already going to see a lot of surgery over the summer. Adding another goalkeeper to that transfer list, which we need to sign, because if you're not signing Ramsdale and you're not signing Nick Pope, you ideally have to sign two goalkeepers. I think then you're leaving yourself with too much work to do. So keep Pope as a squad option, as a second goalie. I think that's completely fine. Then there's still Gillespie and Rudy. I'll be honest, both of them could be going in contract exit. I'll keep Ruddy around for the vibes, but I don't necessarily think he's got much to add. And then there's Odysseas Vlachidimos, who has actually had a pretty good time of it over in Spain for Sevilla. I think just get any sort of money you can get for him, and that would probably be a really positive transfer on our behalf. Now, for this next segment, I think we can go over this pretty quickly because these are players like Antonito Cordero, Sahar, Trevan Sanusi, who all are very, very young and have a lot of potential in my eyes, but simply aren't first team ready. So I'm just going to put all of them in the loan out category. One player who I might be touching on, or actually, there are a couple of players. First of all, Alex Murphy. Now, Murphy has been spending a lot of time at the club, and if we were ever going to trust him with minutes, I think it would have been this season. Given Tino Livramento's injury struggles, given the fact that Kieran Trippier is 35 years old, given Lewis Hall's injury struggles and our over reliance on him throughout the seasons, I think if not now, when, for Alex Murphy. So I doubt Eddie Howe will ever trust him enough to give him first team minutes. That's why I'm putting him. That's why my program is lagging. There we are. That's why I am putting him into the sell category. Now, Joe White can still go in the loan category. The same can be said for Park Sung So and for Travis Hernes, in my opinion. The one player who I would sell along with Alex Murphy is Harrison Ashby. He is bordering on 25, 24 years old, which, I mean, he pretty much is the player he's going to be at this point, in my opinion. I think there is a limited number of players you can loan out, and to keep loaning him out every single time is just, yeah, it's too much, in my opinion. So, I wouldn't anymore, in all honesty. Now, one player who I notice is missing from this list is Matt Target. He is out on loan as well at Middlesbrough, and he is running, or his deal is running out in the summer. He's still on 100k a week somehow, but he himself has said that the Newcastle United chapter of his career is over, so I think that's best for all parties involved to let him go on a free. Now, probably the most interesting part of the video, the playing squad and whether or not I want to keep or sell them. There have been a lot of rumors surrounding our playing squad, a lot of links that link players with a move away from this club, and the first one of those players is Lewis Hall. Now, let me be very, very clear on Lewis Hall. We absolutely need to keep him and we need to build our team around him. He is so unbelievably good, so unbelievably reliable. The way he wriggles himself out of tight areas, dribbles in between three or four players to get our ball moving up the pitch, the way he himself moves up the pitch to be our most creative outlet at times. He is unbelievable. I think we are so, so lucky that his dad is a Newcastle United fan, because if we can show that this project is indeed going in the right direction and we can show him that we want to build the team around him, I think we could be looking at a legendary player for Newcastle United, because not only of his connection to the club, but also very much because of his talent, because he might already be the best left back in the Premier League. Now, On the other side, there are two right backs who are definite talking points. First of all, the easiest talking point is Kieran Trippier because he himself and the club have announced that he is leaving at the end of the season. An unbelievable servant to this club to be leaving at 35 years old as the first signing of this Newcastle United rebuild era under new ownership, to be the face of that project and to absolutely kill it in that position. I mean, we must not forget throughout his first two and a half seasons, he was probably one of our most important and influential players on the pitch, both going forward and going backwards. Yes, this season he has struggled. He has looked like a 35-year-old playing right back for a Champions League club. Let's be honest about that. But he can't be blamed for that. That is down to Tino Livramento's injury struggles, down to our recruitment not necessarily giving him the backup he would need throughout this season. He deserves so much praise for his time at Newcastle United, and I wish him all the best. I mean, he is one of the captains who won this club their first trophy in 70 years. Yeah, he will go down a cult hero, a club legend, and Kieran Trippier, all the best in your future endeavors, whether that be some MLS move or maybe even retirement already. Now, his counterpart is Tino Livramento, and this is a really interesting conversation point because I am putting him in sell. Now, I wouldn't want to sell Tino Livramento in an ideal world. I think he has the potential to become, if not the best, at least one of the best right backs in world football, in European football. But there have been talks about a 60 to 65 million pound offer from Manchester City, which, if that eventually does get tabled, you have to accept that for a player who continues to struggle with the same injuries throughout his career. I don't necessarily think at any point he will be worth that amount of money simply because he won't be playing 38 games a week. But if you could get that amount of money, you could absolutely invest it in, let's say, one experienced right back and one right back who is coming through, and then immediately by selling one player you have fixed up that position because, like I said before, Trippier is leaving as well, so we might need two players in the same position to offer us depth and options. Again, I wouldn't necessarily like to sell Livramento because I like him as a player, but if someone like Manchester City, for example, does table an offer which you cannot refuse, then sell him. His injury record means you'd probably be okay. And right back is a position we absolutely could afford to replace and could scout some further players in, because I don't think players like or clubs like Manchester City, for example, will be scouting in Belgium and Netherlands for their right backs, which we absolutely could still do. So, Tino, ideally keep, but I'm putting you in the sell column because I wouldn't be surprised that you were sold. Emil Kraft. Now, we are selling Livramento and letting go of Kieran Trippier. But I do think, listen, in an ideal world, you'd probably let go of Emil Kraft on a contract exit. But given the fact that he can cover in right back and in the center back positions, and we maybe also ideally like one more center back as well this summer, keeping a player like Emil Kraft, who isn't on massive wages, who isn't demanding of a starting berth every single week, maybe he could be viable squad depth at least for some cup ties against lower opposition if we were to ever get drawn in the cup against some lower opposition, because we all know how that went this season. I'd actually genuinely be considering keeping Emil Kraft. Now, Malick Thiaw is an obvious keep, probably our best signing over the summer, an unbelievably great and consistent centre back who, yes, has struggled a bit with form over the last month or two, but let's be honest, that's mostly our fault because we just keep overplaying him and we keep demanding the most of him. So next season, if we have the ability to rest him for a few games, take him off in other games, I think we're going to see Malik Thiaw back to his early season best. Fabian Schär is an interesting one, however. He's missed a large portion of the season through injury, but I think keep him around. Even if it's just for one more season without playing loads of minutes, I think you have to keep him around. And the same has to be said for Sven Botman, who struggles with injuries as well. Because quite simply, first of all, like I've been saying throughout this entire video, don't leave yourself with too much work to do over the summer. If you have the ability to sign a young central defender, absolutely do it. Have Fabian Schär and Sven Botman in there for those young centre backs to learn off of. I think that could be a really, really positive environment. And the last defender we haven't talked about is an obvious keep. It's Dan Burn. Big Dan freaking Burn. Um, yeah, basically quite simple. You need to have what a lot of people in sports call water carriers in your team, which is basically these players who understand what it's about, understand the culture around the club, understand the fans, can be a sort of um, mouthpiece for the players towards the fans, but also for the fans towards the players. And I think that's is unbelievably important. And Dan Burn has completely embraced that role. Obviously, being from Blythe himself, he is a Geordie through and through. And as long as it may continue for him at Newcastle United, I think there will always be a place for him in the squad. Now, midfield, very, very, very interesting. First of all, Bruno Guimaraes. I think the same. I'm also real quickly putting Thiaw and let's say Botman because he probably is the future of our backline in the keep pile. I know keep and squad is probably the same, but maybe instead of keep, I'll put starting 11 like this. So, as for Bruno Guimaraes, obviously he is starting 11. Obviously we built a team around him. Obviously we cannot sell him. Yes, there have been rumors linking him to the likes of Manchester United, for example. I'll be completely honest, I genuinely believe that that's just contract talk. I think his agent is trying to stir up rumors in order for him to get a higher salary, but I don't necessarily think leaving is really on the cards. If we don't offer him that salary, maybe eventually down the line it could be on the cards. But let's be honest, Bruno is absolutely in love with the club, in love with the city, and we are absolutely in love with Bruno Guimaraes. So, captain, fantastic. Our Brazilian captain just has to stay where he is. His midfield partner, however, Sandro Tonali, I'm moving him to sell. Now, again, a lot like the Tino Livramento situation. In an ideal world, you keep your best players and you don't have to sell. But last summer, we learned that that's not always the case, unfortunately. And Sandro Tonali's agent has been offering him to a multitude of clubs, reportedly. Maybe Tonali himself doesn't necessarily want to leave, but if a team like Man United, for example, was to offer us 90, even 80 million pounds for Sandro Tonali, I think there is a world in which you look at that prize money and say, yeah, let's sell him because he is now arriving at peak age. And the one biggest factor in which why I would be open to selling him is he's very, very akin, or not necessarily akin, he resembles Bruno Guimaraes a lot in his play style. And I think that's been one of our biggest issues this season, a lack of differentiation. So if we could sell Tonali for close to 100 million pounds and sign two midfielders that are completely different profiles from Bruno Guimaraes, I think our squad as a whole would massively improve by doing so. And yes, Tonali is an incredible player, but also I think a lot of people are misprofiling Sandro Tonali, meaning if, for example, he goes to Manchester United to become their number six, I don't think that works. We've seen it ourselves that Sandro Tonali isn't a lone six. He doesn't defend enough to be a lone six. You need to have another destroyer next to him, and then he can be your ball mover or your energetic piece in the midfield, but not your sole number six. And a lot of clubs seem to want to buy him to be that. A lot of Man United fans see in him a fantastic Casemiro replacement, I think that's career mode kind of thinking, because that's just thinking one player plays in the same position as a different player, so he'll be able to replace him. Whereas Casemiro and Sandro Tonali do completely different things in a game. Then we have Joe Willock. This is another player who I think we might be open to letting go. We've seen him be rumored to move back to London, to Crystal Palace or Fulham, for example, or even West Ham. I think that would be the ideal kind of move for him. Maybe one of the promoted clubs could be ambitious and pick him up. I think that would be pretty fantastic for them as well. Last season, I didn't even think we could get any money for Joe Willock, but he's actually had a pretty decent season, in my opinion, and we might have actually bumped his price tag up back up to a 15, maybe even 20 million if we're being really, really positive. And I think that you absolutely have to take that for Joe Willock. So that's why I'm putting him in sell. Joe Linton could be in sell for some people, but I'm just going to put him in the squad. Again, I don't want to leave us with too much work to do. I think a player of his physicality, his stature, his willingness to run could absolutely still offer a lot to this Newcastle United midfield, but I would be looking to turn him into a backup for next season. Meaning, at this moment in time, we only have selected one of our starting 11 midfielders. The second midfielder I want to put in that starting 11 is Louis Miley. He is unbelievable. Honestly, I think he's had a better season than Sandro Tonali has had. I think his injury, along with Bruno's injury, are the two injuries that have hurt us the most this season, and he's taken the biggest steps out of any Newcastle United player. Filling in at right back, filling in at central midfield, being so unbelievably composed on the ball, never putting a foot wrong when it comes to his passing, but also his positioning when being out of position in right back. He has impressed me so much this season, and I am all aboard the Louis Miley hype train. The last midfielder we're discussing is an obvious keep as well, simply because he's only recently joined. It's JJ Ramsey, but also because he's slowly but surely getting better in a Newcastle United shirt. It has to be said. I think the last 2 or 3 months from him have really shown a promise, really shown that Eddie Howe didn't misprofile him when signing him. And I think as an auxiliary midfielder, as a third midfielder, he is more than fine. Doesn't lose the ball in dangerous areas. Really physical. I think, for example, in the first leg against Barcelona, you saw that JJ Ramsey, is way more physical than any of the Barca midfielders. So that is still an asset. I think, yes, there is still a lot of output to be gained out of Jacob Ramsey. Now we're moving on to the attack with, first of all, our four wingers: Jacob Murphy, Harvey Barnes, Anthony Gordon, Anthony Elanga. Now, Elanga is the easiest conversation. He is a squad player because, again, we only just signed him, but he has had a really, really difficult season. I think the reason for the difficulties he's faced this season is genuinely mostly down to our entire transfer summer last year. Because, like I've touched upon a multitude of times in this video, we lack different options, we lack different ideas. It seems like all of our wingers are unbelievably athletic players who want to get in behind of the opposition, who have pace to burn, and Anthony Elanga is just another one in that list of athletic wingers who want to be able to play in transition, want to hurt their opposition in behind. And I don't necessarily, I mean, that suits Eddie Howe ball, but when a lot of teams have started to figure out what Eddie Howe wants to be doing, you need to have different options in your squad. And that's why Jacob Murphy and Harvey Barnes are both. Now, I'm already going to put Anthony Gordon in the starting 11. I think long term it would be interesting to replace Anthony Gordon, but his ceiling is just so unbelievably high. As a footballer, as a player, when you're assessing his talent or his abilities, there aren't many better wingers in the Premier League than Anthony Gordon. That is genuinely the truth. The problem is, first of all, he struggled mentally, I think, this season. I think he struggles to focus himself. And he again has been a victim of us not differentiating enough, us always trying to the same ideas, the same tactics. And yeah, he's said it himself this season too. He enjoys a lot less space in the Premier League than he used to, or than he gets in Europe, for example. But I do think he is a massively brilliant player. And if we are already selling Tonali, Tino, and Willock, which combined could be round about 150 to 170 million pounds, yeah, I think then in that case there is no need at all to be selling Anthony Gordon, and I would just keep on building off of him. I'd keep Harvey Barnes as well because I think he is the, or do I? Yeah, I'd keep Harvey Barnes because I think he is a very, very good backup option. I think if a team offers 25 million, let's say, for Harvey Barnes, maybe you could consider selling him and bringing in a different winger who does offer us those things. But I'd actually ideally like to keep him. I'd keep Jacob Murphy around for another year, but let his contract run down, or let him run his contract down. And I'd also be looking to sign one more exciting winger, ideally someone left footed, because all four of our wingers are right footed, but also someone who cuts inside, looks to create, looks to shoot, basically looks to do different things than our four wingers do right now. Which brings us on to our final position, the striker role. I'm also very quickly just going to put, for now, even Jacob Murphy in at starting 11, because I do think Murphy still offers us more than Anthony Alanga does. And then, like I said, the starting 11. So, first of all, William Osula. I would genuinely be looking to loan out Will Osula. Now, a lot has been made of our striker situation this season, and I think a lot will continue to be made of it because reports are that we will be looking for a new striker in the summer yet again. That leaves, first of all, one of the spaces, in my case, William Osula, to leave on loan. Why on loan and not sell him? Well, quite simply, I think he needs to show on loan that he just has the tiniest bit of footballing ability, because if he does, we're genuinely looking at a 40 million pound player. He has the physical attributes, which is the one thing that scouts are scouting most heavily on at this moment in time, especially when it comes to players coming to the Premier League. He has everything when it comes to those physical abilities. He's lightning quick, he's tall, he's strong, he's tenacious in duels. So that is a really, really big positive, but he just looks so clunky. And I think if he could get an entire season playing Bundesliga football, for example, his value could genuinely skyrocket. Now, the other two players I'm already going to spoil to you, I am keeping, basically because we've not seen enough of them to judge them. In my opinion, after 12 months you need to have at least 2 seasons of a new signing to be able to judge them. But Wisa very much hasn't worked. We still need to see a lot more output from Johan Wisa. And Voltemade started the season really, really strong, stronger than he probably should have, because the expectations got raised accordingly. And since then, he's really struggled. Eddie Howe has taken him out of the striker role. I think in football, we tend to see evolutions and trends. A lot of people think that a two striker system could be a future trend, or at least a trend that is right around the corner. If that were the case, I think Nick Voltemade could turn into a really, really effective player for us. But even as a target man, or not necessarily a target man, let's say a focal point who can hold up the play, who doesn't necessarily have to contest aerial duels for every single ball he receives, I think that's when we get a lot more positivity out of a player like Nick Voltemade. But that is my list. That is what I think needs to happen with this entire Newcastle United playing squad. Please let me know if you agree with my assessments. Do you agree with the players I've sold, I've kept, the players I'm loaning out? Please let me know in the comment section below. And I would like to see you in a few days to talk about some Newcastle United transfers. Have a good one.